Apache woman lay crumpled in the dust, like discarded leather wrists bound with rawhide, so tight her fingers had turned purple. Harlan Stone dismounted, slow rifle ready, knowing full well that touching her meant choosing a side in a war that wasn't his. But when her cracked lips moved, just barely whispering something that might have been please or might have been a prayer, he made his choice. He cut those bonds with his knife and lifted her onto his horse, and in that moment every rule he'd lived by for 40 years went up in smoke. If you're watching from Denver or Dallas, from Phoenix or Santa Fe, drop your city in the comments below. Let's see how far this story travels. Now settle in, because what happened next in Coyote Notch changed everything. The road stretched out before Harlan Stone like a rattlesnake basking in the September heat, all curves and hidden danger. He'd ridden this path between his ranch and town for 15 years, knew every rock and rut, but something felt wrong this morning. The air hung too still even for drought season. No birds, no wind, just the steady clop of his mare's hooves and the creak of worn leather. Then he saw her. At first, Harlan thought it was a dead coyote or maybe some drunk's abandoned bedroll. But as his horse drew closer, the bundle resolved into something that made his stomach clench. A woman face down in the dirt, arms twisted behind her back. "Whoa, girl." He reined in 20 feet away, scanning the ridgeline for ambush. This stretch of road had a reputation. Locals called it the dump strip, where problems disappeared and questions went unasked. His hand moved to the Winchester in its scabbard, but the hills stayed empty. The woman didn't move. Harlan dismounted, careful boots crunching on the hard pan. As he approached, details emerged that made his jaw tighten. Apache, by the look of her clothing, what was left of it. Tall for a woman, maybe 5'8", with the kind of muscle that came from real work, not soft living. The rawhide binding her wrists had cut deep enough to draw blood, and her fingers had swollen purple-black. He knelt beside her, caught the faintest rise and fall of her ribs, alive barely. Her lips were cracked like dried clay, and when he gently turned her face from the dirt, he saw bruising that hadn't come from any fall. "Someone wanted you gone real bad," he muttered, pulling out his knife. The blade went through the rawhide like it was cutting years of bad decisions. Her arms flopped free, and she let out a sound, half moan, half sob, that might have been relief or pain or both. Harlan looked back at his horse, then at the woman, then up at the sun climbing toward noon. Town was 2 hours away. His ranch was 30 minutes. The smart choice was to leave her for whoever dumped her, to find again or not find as they preferred. That was the safe choice. The choice that kept a man's fences standing and his well flowing. But Harlan Stone hadn't survived 43 years by always making the safe choice. He slipped his arms under her shoulders and knees, lifted her like she weighed nothing, though she was solid as a cedar fence post. She groaned, but didn't wake as he carried her to his mare, who snorted and danced sideways. "Easy, Pepper, she's coming with us." Getting her situated took some doing. He ended up setting her in front of him, her head lolling against his chest, one arm around her waist to keep her from sliding off. The position was awkward as hell, but it would hold for the ride home. 20 minutes in, she started mumbling, not English, not Spanish, Apache words that sounded like water running over stones. Her body burned with fever through her torn shirt. Harlan urged Pepper faster, knowing that every minute counted now. The ranch materialized out of the heat shimmer like a promise kept small but solid, with a well that hadn't run dry in 15 years of drought. He'd built it with his own hands after the war, every board and nail a meditation on starting over. Now he was about to risk it all for a stranger who might not live to see sunset. He carried her inside, laid her on the bed in what used to be his wife's sewing room. Emily had been dead 3 years come November, taken by the fever that swept through after the last Apache raids. Some might call it ironic, him saving an Apache woman in the very room where Emily had done her needlework. Harlan just called it necessity. The stove had gone cold, but he got it fired up quick-set water to boiling. The woman needed fluids, needed cleaning, needed more help than he knew how to give. But he'd learned field medicine during the war enough to know that water and rest could work miracles if you gave them time. He cut away what remained of her shirt, trying to keep his eyes clinical as he revealed the full extent of her injuries. Bruises covered her ribs like purple storm clouds. Rope burns circled her ankles. Someone had worked her over good before dumping her, making sure she'd hurt, even if she somehow survived. The water boiled. He mixed it with cool water from the pitcher-soaked clean rags. As he worked cleaning dirt and dried blood from her wounds, she started thrashing. "No, no," English this time accented but clear. Her eyes snapped open dark as coffee, wild as a trapped animal. Before Harlan could react, her hand shot out and grabbed the knife he'd left on the side table. "Easy now," he said, raising both hands slow, showing empty palms. "You're safe." She pressed herself against the headboard knife, shaking in her grip. Those dark eyes darting around the room like she was cataloging exits and weapons. The blade point wavered between his chest and throat. "Where?" Her voice came out rough as sandpaper. "My ranch, Coyote Notch, found you on the road." "You?" She squinted, trying to focus through the fever. Why, it was a fair question. Harlan considered his words careful, because leaving you would have made me someone I'm not willing to be. She stared at him for a long moment, the knife lowered an inch. "They will come. Maybe. They will kill you. Maybe that too." Something shifted in her expression. The wildness faded, replaced by a weariness that went bone deep. The knife clattered to the floor. She slumped sideways, caught between consciousness and collapse. Harlan picked up the knife, set it back on the table within her reach. "Doors open if you want to leave. But if you want to live, you need water and rest." She looked at the knife, then the door, then back at him. Slowly, painfully, she reached for the cup of water he'd prepared. Her hands shook so bad he had to help her guide it to her lips. She drank like someone who'd forgotten what water tasted like, tears streaming down her face. "Maya," she whispered between sips. "My name is Maya Redbird." "Harlan Stone." He refilled the cup. "Drink slow. There's plenty." She managed 3 cups before exhaustion took her. Harlan covered her with Emily's quilt, the one with the wedding ring pattern that had taken a whole winter to complete. Then he grabbed his rifle and headed for the porch. Night fell like a curtain dropping. He sat in the rocking chair Emily had loved Winchester across his knees, watching the road. Every shadow could be riders. Every sound could be the beginning of the end. But the night stayed quiet except for coyotes calling in the distance and the wind testing his fence posts. Inside, Maya moaned in her sleep, fighting battles he could only guess at. Twice he went to check on her, found her fever still burning, but not getting worse. She'd kicked off the quilt, and he saw more scars on her legs. Old ones, the kind that came from years of hard living, not just one bad day. Dawn came gradual, painting the mountains pink and gold. Harlan's eyes burned from staying awake, but he'd kept worse watches during the war. He stood, stretched out the kinks, and heard movement inside. Maya stood in the doorway, barely upright but vertical. She'd found his spare shirt hanging on a peg, and it hung on her like a tent. Her eyes were clearer, though the fever broken. "You stayed awake," she said. Not a question. Seemed prudent. She moved to the porch rail, careful steps, like she was walking on glass. In the morning light, he could see she was younger than he'd thought, maybe 30, with the kind of face that had been beautiful before life got its hands on it. "I need to leave," she said. "You need to eat first, and those wounds need tending." "You don't understand. The council, they decided. I'm exiled. If they find me here, then we'll deal with that when it comes." Harlan stood, noting how she tensed at his movement. "Right now you need breakfast and bandages. We'll handle the rest after." She studied him like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "Why do you care?" "Maybe I don't like bullies. Maybe I'm tired of living alone. Maybe I just think everyone deserves a chance to choose their own path." He headed for the door. Eggs or porridge? Eggs. They ate in silence, her wolfing down food like she hadn't seen a meal in days. Probably hadn't. Harlan fried up extra bacon, sliced thick bread, kept her coffee cup full. She ate it all, then looked embarrassed at her empty plate. "When did you eat last?" he asked. 3 days, maybe 4. Before the trial, before the verdict. Her hands tightened on the cup. "I refused to marry the man they chose. Struck him when he tried to force the issue. That was unacceptable." Harlan nodded slow. He'd heard whispers of such things, the way traditional law could turn harsh when challenged. "So they beat you and left you to die." The beating was separate, personal. The exile was formal. She touched her ribs, winced. "The man I refused has brothers. And now I'm dead to them. If they see me, they can kill me without consequence. If someone helps me," she met his eyes, "they can kill them too." Harlan stood, started clearing plates. "Well, then we'd best get you strong enough to help with the chores. Lot of work on a ranch. Fence needs mending, chicken coop's got a hole, and the well pump's been acting contrary." She stared at him. "You're not listening." "I'm listening fine. You need a place to heal and figure out your next move. I need help with the ranch. Seems like a fair trade." "They will come," she repeated. "Let them." That afternoon she insisted on helping, despite barely being able to stand. They worked on the fence, her holding posts, while he hammered. She was stronger than she looked, even injured. Her hands were calloused from real work, and she knew her way around tools. "You've done this before," he observed. "My father raised horses. Before." She didn't elaborate on what before meant. They worked until the sun got brutal, then retreated to the porch. She'd found a rhythm, moving careful but steady. The color was coming back to her face. "I should check the horses," Harlan said. "You rest. I'll come. I need to move, to do something." Her jaw set, stubborn. "I'm not an invalid." The barn was cooler, full of the comfortable smells of hay and horsehide. Harlan's 3 horses, Pepper a bay named Bourbon, and an old paint called Patches, nickered at their approach. Maya went straight to Patches, running her hands along his neck with practiced ease. The horse, usually skittish with strangers, stood perfectly still. "He's got some Arabian in him," she said. "Quarter. His grandmother was pure Arabian, brought over from California." She found the curry brush without being told where it was, started working on Patch's coat with smooth practice strokes. Harlan watched her work, saw the way her shoulders relaxed for the first time since she'd woken up. "We should go to town tomorrow," he said. "Get you some proper clothes supplies." Her hands stilled. "That's not wise. Neither was picking you up off that road, but here we are. People will talk. People always talk. Question is whether we let that stop us from doing what needs doing." She resumed brushing, but he could see her thinking. "You really don't care what they might do." "I care, I'm just not afraid of it." That evening they sat on the porch again, watching the sun sink toward the mountains. She'd found his old guitar, the one Emily used to play, and her fingers picked out a melody he didn't recognize. Something sad and sweet and older than either of them. "My grandmother's song," she said when she finished. "From before the wars, before everything changed. It's beautiful." She said it was about finding home in unexpected places. Maya set the guitar aside. "I should tell you, the man I refused, his name is Joseph Crow Dog. His family has influence with the council, and there's another problem." Harlan waited. "I saw them making deals with white men, trading information about water rights, about which ranchers were vulnerable. That's the real reason for the exile, not the refusal, the knowledge." Now things made more sense. These white men have names. One wore a deputy's badge. The other dressed like money silver on his hat, expensive boots. Harlan felt his jaw tighten. That sounded like Deputy Hale and Rafe Dorn, the territory's most successful land broker. and they had a talent for acquiring properties whose owners found themselves in sudden trouble. "Could be you witnessed something worth killing for," he said. "Worth dying for, apparently." They sat quiet as darkness gathered. Then Maya stood swaying slightly. "I should go, tonight, before—" That's when they heard the horses, 3 riders coming fast up the road. Harlan grabbed his rifle, pushed Maya toward the door. "Inside, now." "No." She picked up a shovel, leaning against the wall. "I stand with you, or not at all." The riders stopped at his gate just outside the circle of lamplight from the porch. Harlan recognized the lead rider's silhouette, Joseph Crow Dog himself, flanked by 2 brothers or cousins. "Stone," Joseph called out. "We know she's here." "Don't know what you're talking about. Her tracks led here, blood drops on your road." Joseph urged his horse closer. "Hand her over. This isn't your fight." Maya stepped out of the shadow, shovel in hand. "It is now." Joseph's face twisted in the lamplight. "You're dead, woman. The council spoke." "The council was lied to," Maya shot back. "Just like they're being lied to about the water rights you're selling." One of the other riders started to dismount. Harlan worked the rifle's lever, the sound sharp in the night air. "Stay on your horse, friend. You'd shoot us for this witch," the rider spat. "I'd shoot anyone who comes uninvited onto my land making threats." Harlan's voice stayed level, conversational. "Now the lady's made her position clear. She stands here of her own free will. You can respect that and ride on, or we can have a different kind of conversation." Joseph leaned forward into his saddle. "You don't know what you're doing, Stone. She's brought shame to her people, violence to sacred traditions. Seems to me the only violence I've seen is what was done to her." Harlan shifted the rifle slightly enough to catch the light. "Now visiting hours are over." The 3 men exchanged looks. Finally, Joseph straightened. "This won't end here." "Most things don't," Harlan agreed. They wheeled their horses around, but Joseph called back over his shoulder. "The council will hear of this, and others will come, white men with papers and guns. You've chosen the losing side, Stone." After they were gone, Maya sagged against the porch rail. Harlan caught her elbow, steadied her. "They'll be back," she said, "with more men." "Yes? Then we'd best get ready." He helped her inside. "How are you with a rifle?" "Better with a bow, but I can learn." That night they worked on the defenses, nothing dramatic, just practical preparations. Harlan showed her where he kept extra ammunition, the medical supplies, the rain barrels that could serve as cover. She suggested better angles for watching the approaches, spots where the lamplight would blind anyone looking up at the porch. "You've done this before too," he observed. "Different kind of war, but yes." They worked until midnight, then Maya nearly collapsed. The day had taken more out of her than she'd let on. Harlan half carried her to the sewing room, helped her sit on the bed. "Rest," he ordered. "They won't come back tonight. Too dark for what they're planning." She grabbed his wrist as he turned to go. "Why are you doing this, really?" Harlan considered lying, giving her something simple and clean. But she deserved truth. "My wife died 3 years ago. Fever. I sat by her bed for 6 days, helpless, watching her fade. Couldn't do anything but hold her hand and lie about how she'd be fine." He met Maya's eyes. "Finding you on that road, it was like God giving me a second chance to not be helpless, to actually do something when it mattered." She held his gaze for a long moment, then released his wrist. "That's a heavy weight to put on a stranger." "Maybe, but you're not exactly a stranger anymore, are you?" The next morning came too soon. Harlan woke to the sound of hammering, found Maya out by the fence reinforcing the posts they'd worked on yesterday. She moved stiff but determined, and she'd figured out his system without being told. "You should be resting," he called out. "Rest later, work now." She drove another nail home. "They'll come at dawn tomorrow. It's traditional." "How many?" 20, maybe more. Joseph has many friends. They spent the day preparing. Not just defenses, Harlan insisted on the trip to town despite Maya's protests. She wore Emily's old riding dress and a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed her face. Still, the general store went silent when they walked in. Tom Brennan, the shopkeeper, served them with nervous glances at the door. As Harlan paid for supplies, ammunition, medical goods, extra food, Tom leaned close. "There's talk, Harlan. That Apache woman is under my protection," Harlan finished. "Anyone has a problem with that can discuss it with me directly." Tom's eyes flicked to Maya, who was examining fabric at the counter. "Rafe Dorn was in here yesterday, asking questions about your about your deed." Harlan's blood went cold. "What kind of questions?" "The legal kind. Whether you'd filed all the right papers, whether there might be older claims." Tom dropped his voice lower. Deputy Hale was with him. As if summoned by his name, Hale pushed through the door, star glinting on his vest. His eyes found Maya immediately, and his hand dropped to his pistol. Well, the exile. "Deputy," Harlan stepped between them. "Something we can help you with. Just wondering why you're harboring a criminal Stone. No crime in giving someone work. Last I checked, this was still a free territory." Hale's smile was thin as paper. "Freedom's got limits, especially when it comes to maintaining peace between peoples." He looked past Harlan at Maya. "The Apache don't want her, makes her nobody's problem but her own. Or mine, if I choose to make it so. That's a dangerous choice." Harlan smiled back just as thin. "I've made worse." They left with their supplies, but Harlan noticed Rafe Dorn watching from the saloon across the street, silver hat band catching the light. The man raised his glass in a mock toast. "We've got bigger problems than the council," Maya said as they rode out. "Seems so. They want your land. They want everyone's land. It's what they do. So why make it easier for them by helping me?" Harlan considered his answer as they rode. "Because standing alone, we're both easy pickings. Together, maybe we're tough enough to choke on." That afternoon, a storm built over the mountains. Not rain, not yet, but the promise of it. The air went electric and the horses stamped nervous in their stalls. Maya found Harlan oiling his guns on the porch, sat down with her own rifle, the spare Winchester he'd given her. "Teach me," she said. He showed her how to break it down, clean it, reassemble it. Her hands were quick and sure, and she only needed to see each step once. "You're a natural." "I'm motivated." She sighted down the barrel at a fence post. "When I was young, my grandmother told me a story about a woman who refused to be what others demanded. She lived alone in the mountains, free, but hunted. How'd it end? Different ways in different tellings. Sometimes she died free. Sometimes she found others like her and built something new. Sometimes a warrior came to stand beside her." Maya lowered the rifle. Grandmother never said which ending was true. Maybe they all were. Thunder rumbled closer. The first drops of rain spattered in the dust, and the air filled with the smell of wet earth. "Tomorrow," Maya said. "Tomorrow." They sat together as the storm broke, rain hammering the roof like ammunition. Neither spoke, but the silence wasn't empty. It was full of things that didn't need saying yet. That night, Harlan couldn't sleep. He walked the perimeter of his property, checking sightlines, testing defenses. When he came back to the porch, Maya was there, wrapped in a blanket, guitar in her lap. "Couldn't sleep either," he asked. "Too many ghosts." She strummed a chord quiet enough not to carry. "Yours or mine, both probably." She played her grandmother's song again, slower this time. Harlan sat beside her, not too close, but close enough to feel like they weren't alone. "Whatever happens tomorrow," she started, "we'll handle it. You could still send me away, say I stole from you, ran off in the night." "Could." He looked at her profile in the darkness. "Won't." "Stubborn man." "So I've been told." The rain stopped just before dawn, leaving the world washed clean and smelling of sage. Harlan was checking the horses when he heard them, dozens of hooves moving steady up the road. "They're coming," Maya called from the porch. Not 20 riders, 50 at least. The entire council looked like plus witnesses. They arranged themselves in a half circle around Harlan's gate, formal and forbidding. An elderly woman rode forward Sarah Crowwing, if Harlan remembered right. A matriarch with authority, even the young warriors respected. "Harlan Stone," she called out. "We come for the exile." Harlan walked to the gate, rifle casual in his hands. Maya joined him, standing straight despite everything. "She has a name," Harlan said. "Maya Redbird. She has no name among us. She is cast out." Sarah's voice carried no anger, just certainty. "Will you surrender her for judgment? Already been judged from what I hear." "The judgment isn't complete. She must choose permanent exile or return to face consequences." Maya stepped forward. "I choose exile." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Joseph Crowdog pushed his horse forward. "She can't choose exile while hiding behind a white man's gun." "I'm not hiding," Maya shot back. "I'm working, trading labor for shelter as anyone might." Sarah raised a hand for silence. "The law is clear. Exile means no Apache will shelter, aid, or acknowledge her, but it says nothing about others." She looked at Harlan. "You understand what you risk, not just from us, but from your own people. They won't understand, and we cannot protect you from either side's anger." "Respectfully, ma'am, I haven't asked for anyone's protection, and if she brings violence to your door, then I'll deal with it same as any other trouble." Sarah studied them both for a long moment, then she raised her voice. "Let all witness Maya Redbird has chosen exile. She is dead to the people, but her choice is recognized. Any who harm her, or those who shelter her, act outside our law on their own conscience." Joseph started to protest, but Sarah's look silenced him. "It is done," she declared. The council began to disperse, but Joseph lingered, his brothers beside him. "This isn't over, witch." "No," Maya agreed. "It's not. Not while you're selling out our people's water to Dorn and Hale." Joseph's face went dark. "Careful, you have no voice here. I have eyes, I have memory, and I have proof." She pulled out a piece of paper one Harlan hadn't seen before. "Your signature on a water survey, dated 2 weeks before my trial." Joseph lunged for it, but Harlan's rifle came up fast. "Back off, friend." "Where did you—" Joseph caught himself. "It means nothing." "We'll see what it means when the territorial judge learns about it," Harlan said. "Now get off my land." They rode off, but the threat in Joseph's eyes was clear as spring water. As the dust settled, Maya sagged against the gatepost. Harlan caught her, held her steady. "That paper," he said. "Where'd you get it?" "His tent, the night before they beat me." She smiled, tired but triumphant. "I knew I'd need proof. Just didn't know I'd live to use it. You're full of surprises. Wait until you see what else I took." They went inside, and Maya retrieved a small bundle from under the bed, her only possession from before. Inside were more papers, including what looked like a contract between Dorn Hale and 3 Apache names, including Joseph's. "They're selling water rights they don't own," she explained. "Getting the council to pressure Apache ranchers to leave, then Dorn swoops in to buy cheap. This is evidence of conspiracy. If we can get it to the right people, if we live that long." A sound outside made them both freeze horses again, but different this time. Harlan looked out to see Rafe Dorn himself at the gate, Deputy Hale beside him, and 6 more men behind them. "Stone!" Dorn called out. "Need a word?" Harlan grabbed his rifle, but Maya stopped him. "Let me handle this part." Before he could protest, she walked out onto the porch, standing tall as a lodgepole pine despite her injuries. "Mr. Dorn," she said, pleasant as Sunday dinner. "I believe you've been looking for me." Dorn's eyes narrowed. "Don't believe we've met, miss." "Oh, but we have, through Joseph Crowdog. You remember water rights, territorial claims, all that profitable business." Hale's hand went to his gun. "This woman's a criminal, an exile." From the Apache, yes, but last I checked, that's not a territorial crime. Maya smiled. Unlike fraud, or conspiracy to defraud, or filing false claims. You've got no proof of anything, Dorn said, but his voice had lost some swagger. Don't I? She held up the papers. Your signature's quite distinctive, Mr. Dorn, all those flourishes. Those could be forged. They could, but the territorial judge would know, wouldn't he? He, especially when combined with testimony from the Apache families you've cheated. Dorn looked at Hale, some silent communication passing between them. Then he turned back to Maya. What do you want? Leave. Don't come back. Stop the water scheme. Or these papers go to the federal marshal in Tucson. You're bluffing. Harlan stepped out beside Maya, rifle prominent. She's not. And neither am I. You've got 10 seconds to decide. The standoff stretched tight as fence wire. Then Dorn smiled, ugly and knowing. This isn't over. You can't watch your back forever, Stone. And accidents happen. Fires start. Wells go bad. They do, Harlan agreed. And sometimes land brokers disappear in the desert. Sometimes deputies get federal investigations. Lot of things can happen. Dorn wheeled his horse around. You've made an enemy today. Made one the day you set foot in this territory, Harlan replied. After they were gone, Maya collapsed into the rocking chair, shaking. Harlan knelt beside her, saw tears streaming down her face. Hey, you did good. You did real good. I was terrified. Couldn't tell. She laughed, watery but real. I learned something from my grandmother. Fear's just another tool if you use it right. That evening, Tom Brennan rode out from town with news. Dorn and Hale had pulled out heading for Prescott, or maybe further. Joseph Crow Dog had been called before the council to explain certain financial irregularities. Seems that paper you showed stirred up quite a nest, Tom said. Sarah Crowwing's none too pleased about water rights being sold behind the council's back. What about us? Harlan asked. Tom shrugged. Far as the town's concerned, you've got a ranch hand who happens to be Apache, or was, or hell, Harlan, nobody really knows what to make of it, but Dorn was nobody's friend, so running him off counts for something. After Tom left, Maya and Harlan sat on the porch watching the sun sink toward the mountains. The air smelled of rain and sage and possibility. So what now? Maya asked. Now we fix that fence proper. Get the well pump working smooth. Maybe add another room to the house. She looked at him sideways. Another room? Can't have my ranch hand sleeping in the sewing room forever. Ranch hand. That what I am, for now. Harlan met her eyes. Unless you've got other plans. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached over, took his hand. Her fingers were calloused and strong and warm. My grandmother's song, she said. The one about finding home in unexpected places. Yeah, it has another verse about two people building something new from the ashes of what was. Sounds like a good verse. It is. They sat there as darkness gathered, hands linked, watching the first stars emerge. Tomorrow there'd be work fences to mend, a ranch to run, a life to build. There'd likely be more trouble, too. Joseph wouldn't forget. Dorn might return. The world wouldn't suddenly become easy just because they'd won today. But tonight they had this, a porch of view, and the beginning of something neither had expected to find. Harlan, Maya said. Yeah, that word you're thinking of carving on the gate beam, the one you've been measuring in your head all day. He smiled. How'd you know? I pay attention. She squeezed his hand. Home, that's the word, isn't it? It is. Good word. Best one I know. A coyote called in the distance, answered by another. The sound that had once seemed lonely now felt like conversation, like the world talking to itself about survival and adaptation and the strange paths that led to belonging. Inside the house, the stove ticked as it cooled. The guitar leaned against the wall, waiting for songs yet to be played. The papers that had saved them lay on the table, but their power was spent now, transformed from weapons into history. Outside, the ranch spread beneath stars, 40 acres of hard ground and harder choices, but theirs now, in a way it had never been when Harlan held it alone. Every fence post they'd reinforced together, every defensive position they'd planned, every small act of building had written their claim deeper than any deed. "Storm coming," Maya said, reading the wind. "Let it come." "You sure?" Harlan looked at her, this woman who'd arrived broken and bound, who'd stood tall against every threat, who'd chosen exile over surrender, and then chosen to stay when she could have run. Never been more sure of anything. The first drops hit the roof like promises. Maya started humming her grandmother's song, and Harlan found himself learning the melody, adding his own harmony to hers. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever was, but it was theirs, and that was enough. Thunder rolled across Coyote Notch, and lightning illuminated the land in brief, brilliant moments. In those flashes, you could see it all: the small ranch, the two figures on the porch, the vast desert beyond. You could see the past in the scars on their souls, and the future in the way they faced the storm together. And if you looked close enough, if you knew how to read the signs, you could see something else: the exact moment when two exiles stopped being alone and started being home. The rain came harder now, washing the dust from everything, turning the air sweet and clean. Tomorrow would bring sun and work and the slow process of healing. There'd be trips to town where people would stare and whisper. There'd be nights when nightmares woke them both. There'd be arguments about nothing and everything, because that's what happened when two stubborn people tried to build something together. But there'd also be mornings when the light hit the mountains just right and made the whole world look new. There'd be evenings of shared silence that said more than words. There'd be the gradual, careful process of trust becoming something deeper, something that didn't need a name because it was written in every gesture, every choice to stay every morning. They both woke up and chose to face the world together. 3 months later, when the territorial marshal came through investigating the water rights scandal, he'd find Harlan and Maya working side by side, so natural together that he'd assume they'd been partners for years. 6 months later, when Sarah Crow Wing would quietly send word that certain young Apache women had heard Maya's story and drawn strength from it, Maya would cry for an hour, then plant a garden where Apache medicine plants could grow alongside Harlan's vegetables. A year later, when Joseph Crow Dog would try one last time for revenge, he'd find not just Harlan and Maya ready to defend their home, but half the town standing with them, because somewhere along the way, the strange couple at the Stone Ranch had become part of the fabric of Coyote Notch. Their monthly trips to town marked by Maya's remedies for the sick and Harlan's quiet assistance to struggling neighbors, but all of that was still to come. Tonight there was just the rain and the porch, and two people who'd found each other at the exact moment they'd needed to. Two people who'd chosen to stand together when standing alone would have been easier, but infinitely emptier. The storm raged on, but inside the circle of light from the house there was peace. Not the peace of surrender or exhaustion, but the peace of decision, of choosing a path and walking it together come what may. Maya started to shiver. The evening had turned cold with the rain. Without thinking, Harlan draped his coat around her shoulders. Without thinking, she leaned into him. Without thinking, they both knew this was how it would be. From now on, small gestures of care building into something unshakable. "Thank you," Maya said, and she meant for everything, for the rescue, for the shelter, for the choice to stand with her, for the future they were slowly drawing into being. "Thank you," Harlan replied, and he meant for everything too, for the purpose, for the partner, for the proof that life could still surprise him, for the home that finally felt complete. The rain began to ease, but they didn't move. There was nowhere else they needed to be, no one else they needed to become. They were exactly where they belonged, exactly who they were meant to be, two people who'd refused to let the world tell them how their story should end, writing instead their own ending with every shared sunrise, every defended principle, every quiet evening on this porch. And when the rain finally stopped and the clouds parted, to reveal stars sharp as promises. They were still there, still together, still choosing each other over all the easier paths they could have taken. Home. The word would be carved on the gate beam tomorrow, Harlan decided, but it was already written everywhere that mattered. In the mended fences, in the defended ground, in the space between two chairs that had gotten smaller as trust grew larger, in the way Maya's humming had become the sound that meant safety, in the way Harlan's steady presence had become her anchor. Home wasn't a place they were learning. It was a choice renewed daily to stand together against whatever came. And in the harsh beauty of Coyote Notch, under stars that had watched 1,000 such stories unfold, they chose it again and again, building something new from the ashes of their separate pasts, something stronger than either could have managed alone, something worth every risk they'd taken, something that would endure long after the last thunder faded and the desert bloomed with rain's brief gift. The morning after the storm brought trouble in a form Harlan hadn't expected. A writ nailed to his gatepost, the paper still damp from last night's rain, but the words clear enough to chill. Blood. Notice of investigation. Maya read aloud, her voice steady, despite the way her hands tightened on the document. By order of Deputy Marshal Hale, this property is under review for harboring fugitives and conspiracy against territorial law. Hale's no marshal, Harlan said, but his gut told him this was worse than false papers. Look at the seal. Maya pointed to the bottom of the writ. It's real. He must have gotten promoted after Dorn left, or bought his way up. 3 riders were already coming up the road, dust rising behind them like smoke signals of trouble ahead. Not Apache this time. These were white men dressed in the kind of clothes that meant official business or unofficial violence, sometimes both. Inside, Harlan said, but Maya shook her head. Running makes us look guilty. Being smart keeps us alive. Then let's be smart together. She moved to stand beside him at the gate, close enough that their shoulders touched. Whatever comes, we face it standing. The riders stopped 20 feet away. The lead man was someone Harlan recognized but hadn't expected. Judge Franklin Moore from Prescott, a man with a reputation for being unbribable but also unsympathetic to anyone who disrupted what he called the natural order. Mr. Stone, the judge said, not dismounting. Miss, he paused, waiting. Redbird, Maya supplied, chin up. Yes, the exile. Moore's expression gave away nothing. I'm here about some disturbing allegations. Made by who? Harlan asked. Deputy Marshal Hale has provided evidence that you're harboring a woman who's been cast out by her people, creating a situation that could lead to violence between communities. Since when is giving someone work a crime? Moore finally dismounted, his movements careful and deliberate. Since that someone has been accused of theft assault and conspiracy to defraud. Maya stepped forward. Those are lies. That's for a court to decide. You'll both need to come to Prescott for a hearing. When? Harlan asked. Now. The word hung in the air like a loaded gun. Harlan felt Maya tense beside him, knew she was calculating distances, escape routes, chances. And if we refuse? He asked. Moore sighed, looking older than his 50 years. Then I'll have to assume the allegations are true and issue warrants. You'll be hunted, Mr. Stone, both of you. Is that really what you want? What I want is to be left alone on my own land. That's not an option anymore. Moore's eyes shifted between them. However, if you come peacefully present your side, this could all be resolved quickly. Deputy Marshal Hale is eager to press charges, but he'll need more than accusations. Maya touched Harlan's arm, a quick gesture that said more than words. They both knew this was a trap, but sometimes the only way out of a trap was through it. We'll need time to prepare, Harlan said. You have an hour. As the judge and his men waited by the gate, Harlan and Maya gathered what they needed. She retrieved the hidden documents while he loaded weapons into his saddlebags, not obviously, but enough to matter if things went bad. This "This is my fault," Maya said quietly as they worked. No, this was coming regardless. Men like Hale don't forget being embarrassed. "You could say I forced you, that I threatened." "Stop." Harlan caught her shoulders, made her look at him. "We stand together or not at all. You said that, remember?" Her eyes searched his face. "That was before nothing. Nothing's changed except the weather." She laughed short and sharp. "You're either the bravest man I've known or the most foolish." "Probably both." They prepared to leave, but as Harlan was saddling Pepper, he noticed something odd, fresh boot prints by the barn that didn't match his or Maya's. Someone had been here during the night, during the storm. "Maya," he called soft, "check the house." She disappeared inside, came back with her face grim. "Someone's been through my things. The papers, some are missing." "Which ones?" "The ones with Hale's signature. The ones that prove he was part of Dorn's scheme." Harlan cursed under his breath. This was worse than a trap. It was a frame-up with the evidence already stolen. "We should run," Maya said. "Where? How far? How long before they catch us?" Harlan shook his head. "No, we go to Prescott. We face this." "With what proof?" "With the truth." "The truth?" Maya's laugh was bitter. "When has that ever been enough?" Judge Moore was checking his pocket watch when they emerged. "Ready, as we'll ever be," Harlan said. The ride to Prescott took most of the day, the sun climbing high and hot, as they moved through country that shifted from desert to pine. Moore rode ahead with his men, while Harlan and Maya followed, not quite prisoners, but not free either. "Tell me about Prescott," Maya said quietly. "Territorial capital, big enough to have law, small enough that everyone knows everyone's business. And this judge, fair mostly, but he believes in keeping things orderly, doesn't like disruption. And we're disruption. That we are." They stopped once to water the horses. Moore's men watched them, careful hands never far from their guns. One of them, a younger fellow with nervous eyes, kept staring at Maya, like she might transform into something dangerous at any moment. "Problem?" Harlan asked him. "Just never seen one up close before. An Apache, I mean." "She's a person, not a curiosity," Harlan said flat. "Didn't mean nothing by it." Maya surprised them both by speaking up. "Your fear is showing. Might want to tend to that before it makes you do something stupid." The young man flushed red and turned away. As they neared Prescott, the road got busier. Freight wagons, riders, families in buckboards, all the commerce of a growing town. People stared as they passed, recognizing the judge, wondering about his companions. The courthouse sat in the center of town, a 2-story brick building that looked like it meant business. As they dismounted, Harlan saw faces in windows, crowds gathering. Word had already spread. "The hearing will be tomorrow morning," Moore said. "Tonight you'll be guests of the territory." "Guests or prisoners?" Maya asked. "That depends entirely on how you behave." The jail wasn't what Harlan expected. Instead of cells, Moore led them to a boarding house next door run by a severe woman named Mrs. Garrett, who looked at Maya like she was measuring her for a coffin. "Separate rooms," Moore instructed. "They're not to leave without escort." "I run a respectable establishment," Mrs. Garrett sniffed. "I'm sure you do. Deputy Collins will be outside if there are any problems." When they were alone in the hallway, Maya caught Harlan's hand. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we'll handle it." "You keep saying that. Haven't been wrong yet." That night, neither slept much. Harlan could hear Maya pacing in the next room, could feel the weight of tomorrow pressing down like a stone. Near midnight, he heard a soft knock on his door. "It's open," he called, quiet. Maya slipped in fully dressed. "Someone's outside, not the deputy." Harlan moved to the window, saw a shadow beneath the oak tree across the street, then another by the livery stable. "How many?" "3, maybe 4. They're waiting for something." "Or someone." A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Maya grabbed the letter opener from the desk, but Harlan caught her wrist, shook his head. The footsteps passed by, continued down the hall. "We're sitting ducks here," she whispered. "Better than running ducks." Is that supposed to be comforting? Before he could answer, glass shattered in Maya's room. They rushed next door to find a rock on the floor, a note tied to it with twine. "Leave tonight or burn tomorrow," Maya read. Subtle. More glass broke, this time the window in Harlan's room, then shouting in the street. Deputy Collins was yelling at someone, then came the sound of a scuffle. Harlan grabbed his gun, but Maya stopped him. "That's what they want. You shoot someone even in defense, and tomorrow's hearing becomes a murder trial." She was right. They sat on the floor, backs against the wall, listening to chaos erupting outside. More shouts, running feet, then gradually things quieted. "Mr. Stone, Miss Redbird," Deputy Collins called through the door. "You folks all right?" "Fine," Harlan answered. "What happened?" "Some drunk cowboys causing trouble. Nothing to worry about." But his voice was tight with lies. Dawn came pale and uncertain. Mrs. Garrett brought breakfast eggs, gone cold coffee, bitter as medicine. She wouldn't meet their eyes. "Quite a disturbance last night," Maya said conversationally. "I wouldn't know about that." "Really? Sounded like half the town was in the street." Mrs. Garrett's mouth pursed tighter. "Some folks don't appreciate certain elements being brought into respectable places." "Elements," Maya repeated. "That what I am. You're what you are." After she left, Harlan pushed his plate away. Friendly town. Getting friendlier by the hour. Deputy Collins escorted them to the courthouse at 9 sharp. The courtroom was packed, standing room only. Harlan recognized some faces: Tom Brennan from the general store looking uncomfortable, several ranchers he'd dealt with over the years, and in the back, a cluster of Apache, including Sarah Crowwing. Judge Moore took his seat, gavelled for order. "This is a preliminary hearing to determine if charges should be filed against Harlan Stone and the woman known as Maya Redbird. Deputy Marshal Hale, present your case." Hale stood all swagger and righteousness. "Your Honor, Mr. Stone has harbored a known criminal, an exile from her own people, creating a dangerous situation that threatens the peace between white settlers and Apache." "What crime has Miss Redbird committed under territorial law?" Moore asked. "Theft, for one, assault, conspiracy to defraud." "Do you have proof?" Hale produced papers. Some Harlan recognized, others he didn't. "Documents stolen from legitimate business dealings between certain Apache representatives and local merchants." "Those documents prove conspiracy," Maya said, standing. "A conspiracy to steal water rights." "You're out of order," Moore said. "Sit down." "Your Honor, I have the right to defend myself." "You have the right to remain silent until called upon." Maya sat, but her eyes burned with fury. Hale continued, painting a picture of Maya as a violent woman who'd attacked respected members of her tribe, stolen documents, and manipulated Harlan into protecting her. "Mr. Stone is clearly bewitched," Hale said. "No rational man would risk everything for a stranger unless under some influence." "That's enough speculation," Moore said. "Mr. Stone, your response." Harlan stood slow, choosing his words, careful. "Your Honor, Miss Redbird came to work on my ranch after being exiled, which, as you know, is not a territorial crime. She's been nothing but honest and hard-working. As for these allegations of theft and assault, I'd like to see actual witnesses, not just Deputy Marshal Hale's word." "I can provide witnesses," Hale said quickly. Too quickly. The door opened and Joseph Crow Dog entered along with 2 other Apache men. The crowd murmured. "These men will testify to Miss Redbird's crimes," Hale announced. Joseph took the stand, first his testimony rehearsed and damning. Maya had attacked him, he said. Stolen sacred items along with business documents. Threatened violence against anyone who opposed her. "She is chaos walking," Joseph concluded. "A danger to all order, Apache and white alike." Maya's hands clenched in her lap, but she stayed silent. The second witness was worse. He claimed to have seen Maya set fire to a storage building, destroying property and records. "When was this?" Moore asked. 3 weeks ago, Maya finally spoke. 3 weeks ago, I was recovering from a beating that nearly killed me. I could barely walk, much less commit arson. You'll have your turn, Moore warned. The third witness started to speak, but Sarah Crow-Wing stood in the back of the room. This is wrong, she said, her voice carrying despite its quietness. Moore frowned. Ma'am, you're out of order. These men lie. I am matriarch of the council. I was present for all proceedings against Maya Redbird. There was no fire, no theft of sacred items, only a woman who refused a marriage and saw things certain men wished hidden. With respect, Hale interrupted, this woman has no standing in territorial court. But I do. Everyone turned as a new voice spoke from the doorway. A man in a federal marshal's uniform walked in, tall, weathered, with eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. Marshal Jim Corwin, he announced. I received some interesting telegrams about this situation. Moore looked irritated. This is a territorial matter, Marshal. Not when it involves fraud against federal water rights. Not when Deputy Hale here is accused of conspiracy. Corwin walked to the front, his spurs ringing with each step. I've been investigating Mr. Hale and Mr. Dorn for 3 months. Would you like to know what I've found? The courtroom erupted. Hale went pale, started to speak, but Corwin cut him off. Sit down, Deputy. Your commission was revoked an hour ago when I arrested Rafe Dorn in Tucson. He's been very talkative about your partnership. Maya grabbed Harlan's hand under the table, squeezed hard. Your Honor, Corwin continued, I'd like to present evidence that Miss Redbird was not a criminal but a witness to crimes committed by Hale Dorn and certain corrupted members of the Apache Council. Moore looked like he'd swallowed something sour. This hearing is about specific charges, which are false fabricated to silence a witness. Corwin produced a leather portfolio. Sworn statements from 6 Apache families cheated out of water rights. Financial records showing payments from Dorn to Hale and to Joseph Crow Dog, and this, he held up a document, a confession from Rafe Dorn implicating everyone involved. Joseph jumped up. Lies. This woman has corrupted. Sit down, Corwin said cold. You're under arrest too. 2 more federal deputies entered, moving toward Joseph. He tried to run, but the crowd closed in blocking his escape. The courtroom descended into chaos. Moore gavelled frantically. Order, order. When things finally settled, Hale was in custody. Joseph and his companions too. The courtroom had half-emptied people fleeing the drama or running to spread the news. Your Honor, Corwin said, I move that all charges against Mr. Stone and Miss Redbird be dismissed. Moore looked exhausted. So moved. This hearing is concluded. Outside, Harlan and Maya stood in the sunlight, still processing what had happened. Marshal Corwin approached, tipping his hat. Miss Redbird, Mr. Stone, sorry you had to go through that, but we needed Hale to overplay his hand. You used us as bait, Maya said. I did, but I also made sure you were protected. Those men outside your window last night, they were mine. And if things had gone different, Harlan asked, they wouldn't have. I don't leave things to chance. Corwin handed Maya an envelope. This is yours. Documents Dorn was carrying. I believe they belong to you. Inside were the missing papers, the ones proving the water conspiracy. Thank you, Maya said. Thank you. Without your courage in keeping those documents, we'd never have broken this ring. He touched his hat again. There's a standing offer if either of you ever want to work for the federal service. We could use people with your kind of steel. After he left, Harlan and Maya walked slow through Prescott, neither ready to head home yet. They stopped at a small restaurant, ordered coffee and pie, sat in comfortable silence. We should go, Maya finally said. Check on the ranch. We should. Neither moved. That was close, she said. Too close. But we survived. Together. She smiled, then the first real smile he'd seen from her since this started. Together. The ride home was different. The weight that had pressed on them was gone, replaced by something lighter, but somehow more significant. They talked easy about small things, repairs, needed supplies to buy plans for expanding the garden. As they crested the last ridge before the ranch, Maya suddenly reined in her horse. "What is it?" Harlan asked. She pointed. Smoke rose from the direction of the ranch, not a lot, but enough. They spurred their horses hard, racing down the trail. But as they got closer, Harlan realized the smoke wasn't from destruction, it was from the chimney. Someone was at the ranch. They approached, careful, weapons ready. The front door opened and Tom Brennan stepped out, hands raised. "Don't shoot, it's just me." Harlan dismounted, confused. "What are you doing here?" "Watching your place. Folks in town, we figured someone might try something while you were gone. So we took shifts." More people emerged from the house. The blacksmith, the schoolteacher, even Mrs. Patterson from the boarding house. "We heard what happened at the trial," Tom said. "How you stood up to Hale and his bunch. How Miss Maya here was telling the truth all along." Maya looked stunned. "You came to protect our place." "Our place," Mrs. Patterson corrected. "You're part of Coyote Notch now, like it or not." That evening they had an impromptu celebration. People brought food, someone produced a fiddle, and before long, half the town seemed to be there. Maya hung back at first, uncertain, but gradually, she was drawn in teaching Apache dance steps to the school teacher's children, sharing recipes with the ranch wives, laughing at the blacksmith's terrible jokes. Harlan watched from the porch, seeing her transform from guarded exile to something else, someone who belonged. Sarah Crow Wing appeared beside him, moving quiet as morning mist. "You did a good thing," she said. "She did it herself." "No, you gave her ground to stand on. That matters." Sarah watched Maya dancing with the children. "The council has reconsidered. Her exile could be lifted. What does she want? That's for her to decide. But she should know she has choices now." When Harlan told Maya later, after everyone had gone home, she was quiet for a long time. "I could go back," she said finally. "You could. Have my name restored, my place in the tribe." "Yes," she looked at him in the lamplight. "What do you think I should do? Not my choice to make." "But you have an opinion." Harlan chose his words careful. "I think you should go where you'll be most yourself, whether that's with your people or here or somewhere else entirely. And if I stayed here, then you'd stay. That's simple. That's simple." She moved closer to him on the porch, close enough that he could smell the sage she'd put in her hair for the dancing. "It's not simple at all," she said. "No, if I stay, things will change between us. They've already changed. More, though. Different." She met his eyes. "Are you ready for that?" Harlan thought about Emily, about the years alone, about the empty spaces in his life he'd grown so used to he'd stopped noticing them until Maya filled them just by being there. "I'm ready," he said. "Even if it's not easy, even if people talk, let them talk." She kissed him, then, gentle but certain, a seal on unspoken promises. When they pulled apart, the moon was rising full and bright, turning the desert silver. "So I'm staying," she said. "Good. And we're doing this whatever this becomes." "Yes. And tomorrow we start working on that addition to the house." Harlan laughed. "Demanding woman. You have no idea." They sat together as the night deepened, planning and dreaming, and sometimes just being quiet. The ranch spread around them, no longer just Harlan's, but theirs, shaped by shared work and shared risks, and the choice to stand together when standing alone would have been safer, but infinitely less worthwhile. A coyote called in the distance, that same sound that had punctuated so many moments between them. But now Maya called back a perfect imitation that made the real coyote answer, and soon they had a whole conversation going between human and animal, between civilization and wildness, between all the various ways of being home. "Teach me," Harlan said. So she did, showing him how to shape his mouth, how to put loneliness and longing and finally belonging into the call. It took him a dozen tries before he got it right. But when he did, when his call was answered by hers and the coyote's, both, something completed itself, a circle, that had been broken now. Whole a story that had been waiting for its proper ending, now found. They stayed on the porch until dawn painted the mountains pink and gold, talking sometimes quiet others, building tomorrow out of words and silence both. When the sun finally rose full, they were still there, still together, still choosing each other over all the safer, lonelier paths they could have walked. The ranch woke around them, horses nickering for breakfast, chickens complaining about something or nothing, the wind testing fence posts they'd reinforced together. There was work to do, always work. But first Maya made coffee while Harlan started on the plans for the addition, and they met in the kitchen to review his sketches, her corrections, their shared vision of what could be. "Make it bigger," she said, pointing to the main room. "Bigger, for children, eventually." Harlan's hand stilled on the paper. "Children. Problem? No, just hadn't thought that far ahead." "I have. Been thinking about it since you picked me up off that road." She covered his hand with hers. "Since you gave me a future to think about." The sound of horses woke them before dawn, not the scattered approach of yesterday's visitors, but something organized, deliberate. Harlan counted hoofbeats while pulling on his boots. 50 riders at least, maybe more. "They're surrounding us," Maya said from the window, her voice steady but tight. She'd changed into the Apache dress Sarah Crowwing had brought her last night, a gesture whose meaning Harlan didn't fully understand, but recognized as important. "The council," he asked. "Love them. This is formal." They stepped onto the porch together as the sun broke the horizon, painting the circle of riders in shades of gold and shadow. Sarah Crowwing rode forward, her face unreadable as stone. "Maya Redbird," she called out, using the name like a summons. "The people have come to speak." "I'm listening," Maya replied. "Not speak to you. Speak about you. About choices made and unmade. About paths taken and refused." Sarah's eyes shifted to Harlan. "And about those who stand with the exiled." An elderly man Harlan didn't recognize rode up beside Sarah. His hair was white as snow, his face mapped with decades of desert sun. When he spoke, his voice carried the kind of authority that came from having seen everything and survived it all. "I am Thomas Crowwing," he said. "Sarah's father, keeper of the old laws. We have come to offer judgment." "I thought judgment was already passed," Maya said. "That judgment was corrupted." Thomas dismounted slow, each movement deliberate. "Joseph Crowdog has confessed his dealings. The water rights, the conspiracy with white men to steal from our own people. The council that exiled you was poisoned by lies." Maya's hand found Harlan's, gripped, hard. "What are you saying?" "We're saying you were wronged. The exile can be lifted. You can return to the people, your name restored, your place assured." The words hung in the morning air like a challenge. Harlan felt Maya trembling beside him, caught between worlds. "There are conditions," Sarah added. And of course there were. There always were. "Speak them," Maya said. Thomas gestured to Harlan. "This man acted with honor, protecting you when we failed to. But the law is clear. You cannot be Apache and wife to a white man both. You must choose." "Wife?" Maya's voice sharpened. "Who said anything about 'we have eyes'?" Sarah interrupted. "We see what grows between you. If you return to us, it dies here. If you stay with him, you remain dead to us." Harlan started to speak, but Maya squeezed his hand, a warning to let her handle this. "You're asking me to choose between my blood and my heart," she said. "We're asking you to choose between your past and your future," Thomas corrected. "They cannot be the same path." A younger woman rode forward. Harlan recognized her as Anna Clearwater, someone Maya had mentioned as a childhood friend. "Come back, Maya," Anna pleaded. "Your mother grieves. Your sisters need you. The young women need your strength, your example." "My example." Maya laughed, bitter as sage smoke. "My example of being beaten and left to die, of being saved by a stranger because my own people abandoned me. That was Joseph's doing. That was the council's doing, all of you. You stood by and let it happen. We've come to make it right, Thomas said. No, you've come to make it convenient. Joseph's gone, the conspiracy's exposed, and suddenly you need me back to prove the council can admit mistakes. Maya stepped forward, still holding Harlan's hand. But what about next time? What about the next woman who refuses a marriage, speaks an inconvenient truth, chooses her own path? There are laws, Thomas began. Your laws nearly killed me. The circle of riders stirred, murmuring. Harlan saw hands move toward weapons, saw Sarah raise her hand for calm. Then what do you choose? Thomas asked. Maya looked at Harlan, really looked at him like she was seeing every possible future in his eyes. Then she turned back to the council. I choose both. The murmuring turned to confused voices. Thomas frowned. That's not possible. Why, because tradition says so. Tradition also said Joseph Crow Dog was an honorable man. Tradition said I should submit to a marriage I didn't want. Maybe tradition needs to change. You cannot change the law by wishing, Sarah said. No, but I can live outside it. I choose exile, not as punishment, but as freedom. I choose this man, this place, this life, and I choose to remain Apache in my heart, even if not in your law. Anna was crying now. Maya, please. I'll teach any who want to learn, Maya continued. The medicine songs, the old stories, the healing ways, not as one of the people, but as a neighbor, a friend. The knowledge doesn't have to die just because I'm dead to you. Thomas studied her for a long moment. You would preserve our ways while living outside them. Someone has to. How many of the young ones know the grandmother songs? How many can identify the healing plants? You're so concerned with keeping the blood pure, you're letting the knowledge die. It was a bold accusation, but Harlan saw several younger Apache nodding slightly. This is irregular, Thomas said. Everything about this has been irregular, Maya replied. Why stop now? Sarah dismounted, approached the porch. If you choose this to live between worlds, there will be no protection from either side. White men who hate Apache will see you as Indian. Apache who hold to the old ways will see you as traitor. I've been unprotected since the day you exiled me. At least now it's my choice. Sarah reached into her saddlebag, pulled out a wrapped bundle. Your grandmother's medicine bundle. It was being held for your return. Maya's composure cracked. I can't. If I'm not one of the people. You are what you choose to be. The bundle goes where it's needed. Sarah placed it in Maya's hands. Your grandmother would understand. She lived between worlds too, in her own way. Thomas remounted his horse. The council will record this choice. Maya Redbird chooses exile, freely chooses to live outside the people by her own will. Any who harm her or hers do so as individuals, not with council blessing. And any who want to learn from her, Anna asked suddenly. Thomas looked troubled. That is for each to decide. The council will not forbid it, but neither will we encourage it. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. The riders began to disperse, but Anna lingered. Maya, she called. The pregnancy sickness, you remember the tea? Willow bark and mint, Maya replied. With honey, if you can get it. Anna smiled through tears. I'll remember. As the last riders disappeared over the ridge, Maya collapsed into the rocking chair, the medicine bundle clutched to her chest. Harlan knelt beside her. You all right? I just divorced my entire people for you. All right seems inadequate. You didn't do it for me, you did it for you. She looked at him, then tears streaming. Did I, or did I just trade one exile for another? Before Harlan could answer, new dust appeared on the road. Not Apache this time, a single wagon, driven hard, Tom Brennan at the reins. Harlan, Tom shouted before the wagon even stopped. We got problems. What kind of problems? Hale's out. Some lawyer from Tucson got him released on bond, and he's coming this way with a dozen men. Maya stood wiping her tears. How long? Maybe an hour, maybe less. Harlan grabbed his rifle. Armed to the teeth. And Harlan, Tom's face was grim. They've got torches, oil. They mean to burn you out. Let them try, Maya said, but Harlan heard the exhaustion beneath the defiance. Tom, ride back to town. Get anyone who'll come. Already did, but Hale's got legal papers, Harlan. A new writ. Says the ranch belongs to him now, some old claim from before you bought it. That's impossible. I've got clear deed. Not according to the territorial office. Hale's brother-in-law works there, remember? Maya laughed, sharp and bitter. So we fight the Apache at dawn and the whites at noon. Perfect. Tom looked between them. You could run, both of you. No. Harlan's voice was flat. This is our place. We stand or fall here. Tom nodded. Then I'll stand with you. He pulled out a shotgun from under the wagon seat. Where do you want me? They had 40 minutes to prepare. Harlan showed Tom the defensive positions while Maya did something with the medicine bundle, singing over it in Apache, then hanging certain items at strategic points around the property. Protection, she explained when Harlan asked. Might not stop bullets, but it'll help our aim. You believe that? I believe we need every advantage. She was right. When Hale's group appeared, they spread out professional-like, covering all approaches. Hale himself rode to the gate, that same corrupt smile on his face. Stone got papers here, say this land reverts to territorial control, pending investigation of false claims. My claims solid, Hale, not according to this. He waved a document. Seems the man you bought from didn't have clear title. Makes your purchase invalid. That's a lie and you know it. Prove it in court. Meanwhile, you're trespassing. You've got 10 minutes to clear out. Or what? Or we remove you as criminals resisting lawful eviction. Maya appeared in the doorway, rifle in hand. Lawful, that's a word you throw around pretty loose, Hale. The Apache witch. Should have known you'd still be here. Hale's smile widened. Actually, that makes this easier. Harboring a known exile, that's a federal crime now. Since when? Harlan demanded. Since Judge Moore signed this order yesterday. Amazing what a man will sign when his grandson's being held by concerned citizens worried about Apache violence. The pieces clicked together in Harlan's mind. You kidnapped the judge's grandson. Rescued from potential Apache retaliation. He's safe, don't worry. We'll be returned soon as this matter's resolved. You son of a bitch. 10 minutes, Stone, then we come in. Hale rode back to his men and Harlan saw them preparing checking weapons, readying ropes and torches. We can't fight them all, Tom said. We don't have to, Maya said. Just hold until help comes. What help? She pointed to the ridge. That help. Dust was rising from multiple directions, not organized groups, but individuals and pairs converging on the ranch. Harlan recognized some townspeople who'd been at the celebration last night, but others were strangers. Who are they? Word spreads, Maya said, about a woman who chose freedom over safety, about a man who stood against both Apache tradition and white corruption for what was right. Some people respect that. The first to arrive was unexpected Marshal Corwin riding hard with 2 deputies. Hale, he shouted. Stand down. No jurisdiction here, Marshal. This is territorial matter. Wrong. Corwin rode through Hale's line, his deputies flanking him. Kidnapping a judge's family makes it federal. You're under arrest. Again. You can't prove. Your man Dennison already confessed. Gave you up for immunity. Corwin drew his pistol. Now drop your weapons or things get complicated. Hale's men looked at each other uncertain. They'd signed on for an eviction, not a shootout with federal marshals. This isn't over, Hale snarled. Yes, it is. This from a new voice, Judge Moore himself, riding up with town sheriffs from 3 counties. Mr. Hale, you're going to prison for a very long time. You signed the order under duress, which makes it invalid. Moore looked at Harlan and Maya. I apologize for my part in this. The original deed stands. This land is yours, free and clear. The arrest was almost anticlimactic. Hale's men surrendered without a shot, and Hale himself was dragged away, cursing and threatening. But as the dust settled, Harlan noticed something. Not everyone was leaving. A group of Apache warriors remained on the ridge, watching. And approaching from the other direction, a party of white ranchers armed and suspicious. "Trouble's not over," Maya murmured. She was right. The two groups were converging, old tensions and fresh grievances creating a volatile mix. Harlan saw hands on weapons, heard voices rising. "This is going to go bad," Tom said. Maya stepped off the porch, walked straight toward the brewing conflict. Harlan followed, rifle ready, but pointed down. "Enough," Maya's voice carried across the space. "You want to fight, fine, but not here. This is neutral ground now." "Neutral nothing," one of the ranchers spat. "Apache got no business here." "White men got no business telling us where we can ride," a young warrior responded. "Stop." Maya positioned herself between the groups. "Look at you, ready to kill each other over what? Old hate, old fear." "You're one to talk exile," the warrior said. "Yes, I'm exile, from both worlds now, which means I can say what you won't. This fighting serves no one but men like Hale and Dorn. While you're busy killing each other, they steal from both sides." An older rancher Harlan recognized as Ben Carter spoke up. "Apache been raiding cattle, and whites have been poisoning water holes," an Apache elder countered. "Both true," Maya said, "and both symptoms of the same disease, distrust, that lets corruption flourish." "Pretty words won't change nothing," Carter said. "No, but actions might." Maya looked at both groups. "You want to keep fighting, keep losing, or you want to try something different?" "What are you proposing?" the elder asked. "Witness." Maya pulled out papers, copies of the evidence against Hale and Dorn. "Look at these. See how they played both sides. Apache signatures next to white ones, all being cheated equal." Carter rode closer, looked at the documents. "That's my neighbor's mark. He lost his ranch last year." "And that's my cousin's sign," the elder said. "His water rights were sold without his knowing." As the two groups examined the evidence, their anger began shifting away from each other toward a common enemy. "We've been fools," Carter said quietly. "Yes," Maya looked at both groups, "but you can choose to stop being fools. Today. Here." "How?" the young warrior asked. Maya gestured to the ranch. "This place sits between Apache land and white settlements. I'm already exile from one world, stranger in another. Let this be neutral ground, a place where both sides can meet, trade talk without the old rules binding them." "The council won't approve," the elder said. "The town won't like it," Carter added. "Then don't tell them, just individuals making individual choices, coming to buy horses or sell cattle or trade goods. No official anything." Harlan saw understanding dawn on several faces. An unofficial crossing point, a way to maintain necessary contact without challenging either side's official stance. "It could work," Carter said slowly. "Worth trying," the elder agreed. As the groups dispersed, less hostile than before, Maya sagged against Harlan. "You just negotiated a peace treaty," he said. "I just delayed the next fight. Maybe." Marshal Corwin approached, tipping his hat. "That offer of federal employment stands, Miss Redbird. We could use someone with your diplomatic skills." "Thanks, but no, I've got a ranch to help run." Corwin smiled. "Figured you'd say that, but if you ever change your mind." He handed her a card. "Telegraph that address." As evening approached, the ranch finally emptied of visitors. Tom Brennan was the last to leave, pressing a bottle of good whiskey into Harlan's hands. "For the wedding," he said with a wink. "What wedding?" Harlan asked. "The one everyone in town's betting on. I've got 3 months from now in the pool." After he left, Harlan and Maya sat on the porch, passing the whiskey between them, watching the sun set over their land, truly theirs, now legally and morally, and every other way that mattered. "Hell of a day," Harlan said. "Which part?" The Apache trial at dawn, the federal marshals at noon, the peace negotiation at dusk. All of it. Maya took a sip of whiskey, coughed. Strong stuff. Like you. She leaned against him. I'm tired, Harlan, bone tired. Rest then. Can't. Too much to do. Garden needs planting, addition, needs building, diplomatic relations, need maintaining. She smiled. And apparently a wedding needs planning. You heard that. Everyone for 3 miles heard that. Harlan turned to look at her. Is that something you want? A wedding? The formal thing with papers and witnesses? She considered. No, that's for other people's comfort, not ours. Then what do you want? Maya stood, walked to where she'd hung items from the medicine bundle. She took down a small leather pouch, opened it, to reveal 2 silver rings, old and worn. These were my grandparents. They had their own ceremony, just them and the desert and the promises they made. She held them out to Harlan. That's what I want, if you do. Harlan took the rings, studied them. Simple bands worn thin by years of work and weather, but unbroken. Now, he asked, now. They stood facing each other in the dying light. No witnesses but the desert and the coming stars. I don't know the words, Harlan admitted. Then make them up. That's what my grandfather did. Harlan took her hands. Maya Redbird, you came into my life like a storm, changed everything I thought I knew about myself. I offer you partnership protection when you want it, freedom when you need it, and a home always. Maya's eyes glistened. Harlan Stone, you gave me life when I was dying, choice, when I had none, strength when mine failed. I offer you truth, courage when yours wavers, healing when you hurt, and a love that chooses you every day. They exchanged the rings, and it was done. No papers, no witnesses, no official anything. Just 2 people choosing each other in the space between worlds. That night, a storm rolled in from the mountains, not the violent thunderstorm of before, but steady soaking rain that the desert desperately needed. They lay together, listening to it drum on the roof their first night, as whatever they now were to each other, not husband and wife by any law's recognition, but partners by their own definition. No regrets, Harlan asked in the darkness. None. You. Not one. Lightning flickered, illuminating the room briefly. In that moment, Harlan saw the medicine bundle hanging by the door, protecting them in ways he didn't understand, but was learning to accept. Your grandmother, he said. Tell me about her. Maya turned into him, her voice soft in the darkness. She was like me, caught between worlds. Her mother was Apache, but her father was Mexican, never fully accepted by either side. She used to say that people who don't fit anywhere actually fit everywhere. They just don't know it yet. Sounds wise. She was. She taught me that exile isn't about being cast out. It's about being freed to find where you really belong. And where's that? Maya's hand found his in the darkness, their new rings clicking together softly. Here, now, with you. Morning brought unexpected visitors again, but different this time. Anna Clearwater arrived with 2 other young Apache women, shy but determined. We want to learn, Anna said. The medicine songs, the healing plants. Will you teach us? Maya looked at Harlan, who nodded. The barn's empty, could make a good teaching space. So it began, their ranch becoming something neither had imagined. 3 mornings a week, Apache women came to learn traditional medicine. 2 afternoons, white ranchers' wives arrived for Maya's help with difficult births or sick children. Evenings, sometimes both groups overlapped, suspicious at first, then gradually curious, eventually almost comfortable. You're building a bridge, Tom Brennan observed one day, watching Apache and white women comparing remedies in the garden. Building something, Maya agreed. Not sure what yet. Summer turned to fall, the desert painting itself in golds and reds. The addition to the house was finished, 2 rooms and a workspace for Maya's medicine preparations. The garden flourished, mixing Apache healing plants with vegetables, creating something new and useful. One evening, as they watched sunset paint the mountains purple, Maya placed Harlan's hand on her stomach. "Remember when I talked about children?" Harlan's breath caught. "Maya, spring, I think. Maybe early summer." He pulled her close, feeling the world reshape itself again around this new truth. "You sure? My grandmother's medicine is rarely wrong." They sat in comfortable silence, processing this next change. Then Harlan asked, "What do we tell people? The child won't be recognized by either. The child will be recognized by us, by this place, by the people who matter." Maya's voice was fierce. "Our child will belong to both worlds, and neither like me, like this ranch. And that's not a weakness, it's a strength." That night, coyotes called closer than usual, their voices weaving through the darkness like blessings. Maya didn't call back this time, just listened, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "They're welcoming the new one," she said. "How do you know?" "Because that's what my grandmother would say, and because I choose to believe it." Harlan thought about all the choosing they'd done to save each other, to stand together, to create this space between worlds where different rules applied. Every choice had been dangerous, every choice had been right. "I love you," he said the first time he'd said it out loud. "I know." She smiled in the darkness. "I love you too. Chose to love you that day you gave me water instead of judgment. Choose it again every morning when I wake up beside you." The coyotes called once more, and this time Maya did answer her voice, carrying across the desert like a promise. "We are here. We are alive. We are home." The sound echoed off the mountains and came back changed, carrying news to anyone who knew how to listen. Something new was growing in Coyote Notch, something that didn't fit the old categories, something that might point toward a different kind of future. A future they would build day by day, choice by choice, on the ground between worlds, where love was its own law and home was wherever two people chose to stand together against whatever storms might come. The first sign of trouble came 3 weeks later when Maya found the dead rabbit at their gate. Its throat cut clean, a piece of paper pinned to its fur with a bone needle. She didn't need to read it to know who'd left it. Joseph Crow Dog's way of sending messages hadn't changed since childhood. "He's out," she told Harlan when he returned from checking the fence line. "How? Made bail according to this." She handed him the paper, her hand steady despite the chill running through her. "Says I have something that belongs to him." Harlan read the note, his jaw tightening. The documents, no, something else. Maya's hand went to her stomach. "He knows about the baby." The words hung between them like a loaded gun. Harlan set down his tools carefully, too carefully, the kind of controlled movement that meant he was fighting rage. How could he know? Anna, she must have mentioned the pregnancy tea. Maya's voice stayed level, but Harlan heard the hurt beneath it. Joseph always had a gift for making people talk. That night, they didn't sleep. Every sound could be an approach, every shadow a threat. Near midnight, Maya heard it first. Not horses this time, but footsteps, multiple sets, moving careful around the perimeter. "They're testing our defenses," she whispered. Harlan already had his rifle in hand. "How many?" "4, maybe 5. She moved to the window, peered out. "They're marking something, look." Small lights flickered at the corners of their property. Not torches, but something else. Candles, maybe, or oil lamps placed precise like survey markers. "What are they doing?" Maya's face went pale. "Creating a boundary. It's old magic, the kind my grandmother warned about. They're trying to trap us inside." Before Harlan could respond, the lights flared brighter, and smoke began rising from each point. Not wood smoke, but something acrid that made their eyes water even through the closed windows. "We need to break the circle," Maya said, already moving toward the door. "Wait." But she was already outside, running toward the nearest light. Harlan followed, rifle ready, and saw figures scatter into the darkness. Maya kicked over the first marker, a clay pot filled with burning herbs, and something that looked like hair. "Don't breathe it in," she warned, but it was too late. The smoke hit Harlan's lungs like a fist, sending him to his knees, coughing. Through watering eyes, he saw Joseph step out of the shadows, no longer the angry young man from the trial, but something colder, more calculating. That child should have been Apache, Joseph said. Pure blood, not mixed with white weakness. The child is none of your concern. Maya spat, helping Harlan to his feet. Everything Apache is my concern now. The council might have cast me out, but others follow me. True believers who think the old ways are dying because of people like you. More figures emerged, not many, maybe 6 total, but all armed, all with the kind of fervor that made them dangerous. Leave now, Harlan managed between coughs. This is still my land. Land, Joseph laughed. You think your papers mean anything. Your wells will dry up, your cattle will sicken, your crops will fail, the land itself will reject you. Superstition, Harlan said, but Maya's expression worried him. Is it? Joseph pulled out a leather pouch, scattered its contents on the ground salt ash, and something that glittered like glass. Every morning you'll wake to find more death, every night more loss, until you give up what doesn't belong to you. You mean until I give up my life? Maya said. Your life, the child's his, they're all connected now. Break the connection and maybe something survives. A shot rang out, making everyone freeze. Tom Brennan stood at the gate, shotgun, smoking, several townsmen behind him. Heard there was some trespassing going on, Tom said, conversational-like. Thought we'd check it out. Joseph's group began backing away, but their leader stood firm. This isn't over. Sure looks over to me, Tom replied. Now get off Harlan's land before someone gets hurt. After they left, Tom helped Harlan inside while Maya gathered the remains of the markers, studying them with a frown. This is bad, she said. They're using corrupted medicine, mixing traditions that shouldn't be mixed. Can you counter it? Tom asked. Maybe, but I'll need help. Real medicine people, not just me playing with my grandmother's teachings. Tom nodded. I'll put word out, quietly. The next morning brought exactly what Joseph had promised: 3 chickens dead in their coop, no marks on them, just dead. The well water came up cloudy, tasting of metal, and Harlan's best mare Pepper refused to eat, standing in her stall with her head down, trembling. Poison? Harlan asked, checking the feed. Worse, Maya said, running her hands over the horse. Fear. They've put something in her that makes her afraid of everything, even food. She worked on Pepper all morning, singing an Apache burning sage, coaxing the mare to take water mixed with herbs from the medicine bundle. Slowly, painfully, the horse began to calm. It's working, Harlan said, relieved. For now, but Joseph was right about one thing. This is just the beginning. That afternoon, unexpected help arrived. Sarah Crowwing rode up alone, her face grim. I heard about Joseph's medicine war, she said without preamble. What he's doing violates every tradition we hold sacred. But you can't stop him, Maya said. It wasn't a question. Not officially. He's gathering followers among the angry young men, the ones who think accommodation has failed. Sarah dismounted, pulled out her own medicine bundle. But I can teach you the counter songs. The real ones, not the corrupted versions Joseph's using. They worked until sunset, Sarah teaching Maya songs and preparations she'd never learned from her grandmother, deeper medicine that required payment in ways that went beyond the physical. This will cost you, Sarah warned. Fighting bad medicine with good always does. What kind of cost? The kind you don't know until you're paying it. That night, Maya implemented Sarah's teachings, creating a counter circle around their property. Harlan helped, following her instructions without fully understanding them, trusting her completely. Whatever happens, Maya said, as they completed the circle, stay inside the boundary, no matter what you see or hear. The attack came at midnight, not physical this time, but something else. Sounds filled the air, impossible sounds. Children crying, women screaming, the voice of Harlan's dead wife, Emily, calling his name. It's not real, Maya kept repeating, holding him when he tried to go to the door. It's not her. "I know," he said, but his voice broke on the words. The sounds grew worse now. It was Maya's voice, screaming in pain, begging for help, even though she stood right beside him. Then came visioned shadows on the windows that looked like people they knew, people they'd lost, people they feared losing. Maya began singing, her voice barely audible above the chaos. But gradually her song grew stronger. The counter-medicine was working, pushing back against Joseph's assault. Then everything stopped. The silence was almost worse than the noise. They waited, hardly breathing, until dawn came, pale and uncertain. Outside, they found evidence of the battle, dead birds arranged in patterns, burn marks on the ground that formed symbols, and at the gate, a child's toy that Maya recognized with a gasp. "This is Anna's daughters," she said. "He's threatening the children now." "We need to end this," Harlan said. "How he's using fear as a weapon, and fear spreads like disease." The answer came from an unexpected source. Marshal Corwin arrived that afternoon with news that changed everything. "Joseph Crow Dog is dead," he said simply. Maya sank into a chair. "How?" "Found him this morning near the reservation border. Looks like he was preparing another medicine attack, but something went wrong. The corrupted medicine turned on him." "That's not possible," Maya said, but her voice was uncertain. "Sarah Crow Wing says otherwise. Says when you mix traditions that don't belong together, sometimes they bite back." Harlan looked at Maya. "Your counter-medicine." "No, I didn't. I wouldn't." But she looked shaken. Corwin studied them both. "There's more. Joseph left papers, plans. He wasn't working alone. There's a group of white men who've been encouraging the medicine wars, hoping to destabilize the region, make it easier to grab land." "Let me guess," Harlan said. "Friends of Dorn and Hale." "Got it in one. They're calling themselves the Territory Liberation Committee. Real official sounding for a bunch of thieves." That evening, Sarah returned with several other Apache elders. They performed a cleansing ceremony, removing the traces of Joseph's corrupted medicine. "His followers have scattered," Sarah told them. "The young men saw what happened when bad medicine turns. They won't trouble you again." "And the committee?" Maya asked. "That's white man's trouble. You'll have to handle that your own way." After the elders left, Maya stood at the spot where Joseph had scattered salt and ash, her hand on her stomach. "I didn't mean for him to die," she said quietly. "You didn't kill him. His own hatred did." "Did it, or did the medicine decide?" She looked at Harlan. "Sarah warned me about the cost. What if this is just the beginning?" Before he could answer, they heard horses approaching fast. Not one or two, but many. Harlan grabbed his rifle, but Maya stopped him. "Wait, listen." The hoofbeats were organized military almost, and then they saw them, a full cavalry unit, 20 men in uniform riding up to their gate. The captain, a weathered man with kind eyes, dismounted and approached. "Mr. Stone, Miss Redbird, I'm Captain James Morrison. We're here about the Territory Liberation Committee." "Federal intervention?" Harlan asked, surprised. "More than that. President Grant himself has taken interest in the situation here. Seems your ranch has become something of a symbol cooperation between Apache and settlers. He wants it protected." "Protected from what?" Morrison's expression darkened. "The committee has hired mercenaries, professionals from the range wars in Texas. They're coming, Mr. Stone. Tonight, tomorrow, soon. We're here to stop them." The soldiers made camp around the ranch, their presence both comforting and disturbing. Maya watched them from the porch, uneasy. "This isn't our way," she said to Harlan. "Would you prefer Joseph's way or the committee's?" "I'd prefer our way, whatever that is." Captain Morrison joined them as the sun set. "You've built something unusual here," he observed. "We've built a home," Harlan corrected. "More than that. You've built a bridge. Do you know how rare that is? How valuable? Valuable enough to kill for, apparently," Maya said. "Valuable enough to protect," Morrison countered. "The country's changing. The old ways of conquest and conflict, they're ending. What comes next depends on places like this, people like you." "We're just trying to live," Harlan said. "No, you're trying to live together. That's revolutionary." That night, the attack came from an unexpected direction. Fire arrows from the ridge, oil-soaked rags tied to stones thrown at the barn, and smoke grenades that filled the air with choking clouds. The soldiers responded efficiently, but the attackers knew the terrain better, striking and vanishing like ghosts. In the chaos, Harlan lost sight of Maya. "Maya," he called, searching through the smoke. He found her by the well, fighting off two men who'd gotten past the soldiers. She'd taken one down with a shovel, but the other had her backed against the stone rim. Harlan's shot took the attacker in the shoulder, spinning him around. The man raised his gun toward Harlan, but Maya grabbed the well bucket and swung it hard, dropping him. "Behind you!" she shouted. Harlan spun to see Rafe Dorn, himself supposedly in prison, aiming a rifle at them. "Should have sold when you had the chance, Stone," Dorn said. Before he could fire, a figure emerged from the smoke. Tom Brennan, bloodied but standing his shotgun trained on Dorn. "Drop it," Tom ordered. Dorn laughed. "You won't shoot. You're a shopkeeper." "I'm a friend," Tom corrected and fired. The shot took Dorn's hat off close enough to graze his scalp. He dropped the rifle hands up, blood trickling down his face. "Next one won't miss," Tom said. The cavalry had pushed back the main attack, but fires still burned in spots. As dawn approached, they could see the full damage the barn's corner charred, but standing fence posts burned the garden, half destroyed. "We held," Morrison said, surveying the damage. "They won't try again. Too costly, and now they know we're watching." "For how long?" Maya asked. "As long as necessary. Orders are to maintain a garrison in Coyote Notch. Temporary fort, they're calling it." Harlan looked at Maya, saw his own mixed feelings reflected in her eyes. They'd wanted to build something on their own terms, and now they were becoming a military outpost. "Captain," Maya said, "we appreciate the protection, but you don't want to be occupied. I understand." Morrison smiled. "The garrison will be a mile east, close enough to respond far enough to give you privacy. And Miss Redbird, the president specifically mentioned wanting to preserve what he called the organic development of intercultural cooperation. His words, not mine. The president knows about us. Ma'am, half of Washington knows about you. The Apache woman and the white rancher who stood against corruption from both sides, who created neutral ground where none existed. You're either the future of the territory or a romantic anomaly, depending on who you ask." After the cavalry left to establish their garrison, Harlan and Maya stood in their damaged garden, assessing what could be saved. "We're famous," Harlan said, not sure how he felt about it. "We're symbols," Maya corrected. "That's different and more dangerous." She was right, of course. Over the next weeks, they received visitors, constantly journalists. From Eastern papers wanting to tell their story, government officials wanting to use them as examples, Apache delegations wanting to understand their choices, white settlers wanting to know if they were traitors or heroes. Through it all, Maya's pregnancy advanced, and with it, a new kind of vulnerability. She couldn't ride anymore, couldn't work as hard, couldn't fight if needed. It frustrated her deeply. "I'm not fragile," she insisted one morning after Harlan tried to stop her from lifting water buckets. "You're carrying our child. Apache women have been carrying children and working since time began. You're not just Apache." She stopped, looked at him. "What am I then?" It was a question that went beyond the immediate moment, and they both knew it. "You're Maya," he said finally. "That's all that matters." But it wasn't all that mattered, not to the world outside their ranch. The child growing inside her had become another symbol, mixed blood. The future made flesh a bridge or a breach, depending on perspective. One evening, as spring approached with the child due, soon Sarah Crowwing visited one last time. "I'm leaving," she announced. "The council is moving the people to new land further from white settlements." "Running?" Maya asked. "Surviving, adapting, choosing our battles." Sarah studied Maya's swollen belly. "That child will face challenges we can't imagine. Neither Apache nor white, but something new. They'll be loved, Maya said firmly. Love isn't always enough. It's a start. Sarah pulled out a small leather pouch. For the child. When they're old enough to understand, give them this. It's earth from the sacred mountain water, from the eternal spring seeds, from the grandmother tree. They may not be Apache by law, but they carry the blood. This will remind them. After Sarah left, Maya held the pouch, tears streaming down her face. She's saying goodbye, she said. Really goodbye. The people are leaving and we're staying, and nothing will be the same. Harlan held her as she cried, feeling the baby kick between them, strong and insistent. Different isn't always worse, he said. Isn't it? He thought about their ranch, damaged but standing, about the bridges they'd built, fragile but real, about the child coming soon who would inherit all of it, the hope and the burden both. Ask me in 20 years, he said. That night the weather turned. Not a storm, but something else, a soft, steady rain that seemed to wash away the last traces of smoke and conflict. They sat on the porch, watching the desert drink deeply, and Maya began singing again. Not Apache songs or white hymns, but something new, something she was creating for their child. What are the words? Harlan asked. There aren't any yet, just the feeling. Home and hope and courage for the journey. Sounds like everything they'll need. Everything we'll need, Maya corrected. This child isn't just ours, Harlan. They belong to something bigger, whether we want it or not. The rain continued, gentle and persistent, and somewhere in the darkness coyotes called, not warning this time, but welcome. The desert was accepting what they'd built, what they'd become, what they were becoming. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The committee might regroup, the cavalry might leave the symbols they'd become, might weigh too heavy to bear. But tonight they had this rain and song and the promise of new life growing strong despite every odd against it. I need to tell you something, Maya said suddenly. What if something happens during the birth? Nothing will happen. If it does, she continued firmly, save the child, no matter what. Promise me. Maya, promise. He could lie, could give her comfortable words, but she deserved truth. I can't promise that. I won't choose. She turned to him, eyes fierce. Then I'll choose. I choose the child. I choose the future. I choose what we've built, continuing even if we don't. We'll both continue, all three of us. From your mouth to whatever's listening, she said, but her hand found his, held tight. The rain stopped just before dawn, leaving the world clean and ready. As the sun rose, painting the mountains gold, they could see the cavalry garrison in the distance, smoke rising from their morning fires. Could see the road that brought visitors and threats equally. Could see the garden already showing green shoots where they'd replanted. Whatever comes, Maya said, her hand on her belly, we face it. Together, Harlan agreed, all three of us. And in that moment, with the sun rising and the desert blooming with rain's gift, it felt like enough. More than enough. It felt like everything. The contraction started at dawn 3 weeks earlier than expected. Maya gripped the porch rail, her knuckles white, breathing through the pain, while Harlan scrambled to prepare what they'd planned so carefully. It's too soon, she gasped between waves. Baby doesn't know that. He helped her inside, trying to keep his voice steady. The nearest doctor was in Prescott, a day's ride away. They'd arranged for Mrs. Patterson to help when the time came, but she was visiting her sister in Tucson. Get Sarah, Maya said suddenly. She left with the people. Remember? No, she stayed. I saw smoke from her camp yesterday, up by the Red Rocks. Maya grabbed his arm as another contraction hit. Please, Harlan, I need her. He didn't want to leave her, but the fear in her eyes decided him. He mounted Bourbon, his fastest horse, now that Pepper was still recovering, and rode hard toward the Red Rocks. The cavalry garrison was closer, but Maya needed someone who understood both medicines, both worlds. He found Sarah's camp by the smoke, the elderly woman already packing her medical bundle. I felt it, she said simply. The child calls early. There's a reason. They rode back fast, Sarah surprisingly agile on horseback despite her age. As they approached the ranch, Harlan saw riders at his gate, not cavalry, not townspeople. Apache warriors, 6 of them, armed and watchful. "They're with me," Sarah said. "The child being born is significant. Word has spread." Inside, Maya was walking circles in the main room, Anna Clearwater supporting her. Harlan hadn't even heard Anna arrive. "How long?" Sarah asked, immediately taking charge. "Since dawn, getting stronger." Anna's voice was worried. "But something's wrong. The baby isn't positioned right." Sarah's examination confirmed it. "Breach," she said quietly. "This will be difficult." The next hours blurred together. Maya's screams, Sarah's urgent commands, the smell of burning herbs mixing with sweat and fear. Harlan held Maya's hand until she nearly broke his fingers, whispered promises he wasn't sure he could keep. "Can't," Maya gasped after a particularly brutal contraction. "Too much." "You can," Sarah said firmly. "You must. The child has chosen its time for a reason." Outside, more people gathered. Tom Brennan arrived with the doctor from the cavalry garrison, but Sarah wouldn't let him in. "2 medicines fighting won't help," she said. "Choose one or the other." Sarah chose the old ways for this oldest of passages. As the sun reached its peak, something shifted. Maya screamed once more, different this time, and then there was another sound, a baby's cry, strong and demanding. "A girl," Sarah announced, placing the infant on Maya's chest. "Born between worlds, feet first, eyes open. She'll be a bridge walker, this one." The baby was perfect, an impossible skin the color of desert sand, a thick shock of black hair and eyes that seemed to hold too much knowledge for something minutes old. "What do we call her?" Harlan asked, touching his daughter's tiny hand. "Emily," Maya said without hesitation. "Emily Sarah Stone, for what was lost and what continues." Sarah smiled. "A good name, strong." As Maya recovered, visitors came to see the child who represented so much to so many. Apache women brought traditional gifts, beaded moccasins, too small to seem real, a cradleboard decorated with protective symbols. White townswomen brought practical things, cloth diapers, knitted blankets, preserved foods. Captain Morrison came from the garrison with an unexpected gift. Official papers recognizing Emily Sarah Stone as a citizen of the United States with all rights thereof. "The president insisted," he explained, "no child should start life with uncertain status." "And her Apache heritage?" Maya asked. "That's for you and your people to determine. The federal government won't interfere." It was more than they'd hoped for, but Maya still looked troubled. That night, as Emily slept between them, she voiced her fears. "She'll never fully belong anywhere." "She'll belong here," Harlan said. "On this ranch, in this family." "That won't be enough. Not when she's older, when the questions come." Before Harlan could respond, they heard commotion outside. Horses, voices, something falling over. He grabbed his rifle, but Maya stopped him. "Listen." The voices weren't threatening, they were arguing. Harlan recognized Tom Brennan's voice, then another that made his blood chill Hale. They went to the porch, Emily in Maya's arms. In the yard, Tom held a shotgun on Hale, who sat on the ground, hands bound, looking nothing like the swagger-filled deputy of before. His clothes were torn, his face gaunt, and his eyes held a desperation that made him dangerous in new ways. "Found him sneaking around the well," Tom explained, "carrying this." He held up a glass bottle filled with clear liquid. Poison, most likely. "You're supposed to be in prison," Harlan said. Hale laughed, bitter and broken. "Prison burned, riot, guards dead, prisoners scattered. I came back to finish things." "Why?" Maya asked. "What could you possibly gain now?" "Satisfaction. You ruined everything. My position, my plans, my life." He looked at the baby in her arms. That abomination shouldn't exist. Harlan moved before thought, his fist connecting with Hale's jaw, dropping him flat. Tom grabbed Harlan's arm before he could do more. "He's not worth it," Tom said. Morrison and Maya and his soldiers arrived within minutes, taking Hale into custody. But his words lingered like poison in the air abomination. It was what some would think Harlan knew, even if they never said it. "Don't," Maya said, reading his face. "Don't let his hatred touch her." She was right, but easier said than done. Over the following weeks, as Emily grew strong and alert, Harlan found himself watching visitors' faces, looking for signs of judgment or disgust. Most showed only curiosity or genuine warmth, but some. The incident that changed things came from unexpected quarters. A delegation of Apache traditionalists arrived, led by a medicine man named Robert White Eagle, someone even Sarah spoke of with caution. "We've come to see the mixed child," he announced, making the term sound like a curse. "Her name is Emily," Maya said, standing straighter despite still being weak from the birth. White Eagle ignored her, focusing on Harlan. "You've corrupted one of our women. The child is an insult to both bloodlines." "The only insult here is you," Sarah said, emerging from the house where she'd been staying to help with the baby. "This child was born in the old way, received by proper hands, welcomed with the right songs, sung by an exile and witnessed by a white man." "Witnessed by the earth itself," Sarah shot back. "Or did you miss the eagles circling during her birth? The rain that came after the signs are clear for those who can read them." White Eagle scoffed, but Harlan noticed some of his companions looking uncertain. Signs and omens carried weight even among skeptics. "Let me see the child," White Eagle demanded. Maya hesitated, then brought Emily out. The baby was awake, those unusual eyes taking in everything. When White Eagle reached for her, she began crying, not the normal cry of an infant, but something else, a sound that raised hair on necks and made horses shift nervous in their tracks. White Eagle jerked back as if burned. "What is this protection?" Sarah said simply. "The child knows her enemies." It might have been coincidence, might have been Maya's slight shift that disturbed the baby, but the effect was powerful. White Eagle's delegation left quickly, and word spread that the mixed child had power, was protected by forces beyond human understanding. "Did you do something?" Harlan asked Sarah later. "I taught Maya a few things. The child learns even in the womb." Sarah smiled. "Let them wonder. Mystery is its own protection." As spring turned toward summer, life settled into new rhythms. Emily grew fast, smiling early, laughing often. The ranch recovered from the attacks stronger for having survived them. The cavalry garrison became a permanent fixture, bringing steady trade and protection. Then came news that changed everything again. President Grant was coming west, touring the territories, and specifically wanted to visit the Stone Ranch. "This is too much," Maya said, pacing with Emily on her hip. "We're not symbols, we're just people trying to live." "Tell that to the president," Harlan replied, though he shared her unease. Preparations consumed the next 2 weeks. The cavalry built a reviewing stand. Townspeople painted buildings, and reporters arrived from newspapers across the country. The Stone Ranch became the center of a circus they'd never asked to join. The night before Grant's arrival, Maya couldn't sleep. She took Emily out to the porch, singing her grandmother's songs under the stars. "What are we doing?" she asked when Harlan joined them. "Surviving, adapting." "Performing," she corrected. "Dancing for their entertainment." "Maybe, or maybe showing them something new is possible." Emily reached up, touching her mother's face with tiny fingers, and Maya's expression softened. "She won't know any other way," Maya said. "This will be normal for her, being watched, being judged, being a symbol. Then we'll teach her to be more than that." President Grant arrived with less fanfare than expected. Just a small escort, his wife Julia, and a few aides. He was smaller than Harlan had imagined, tired-looking, but his handshake was firm and his eyes sharp. "Mr. Stone, Miss Redbird, I've heard remarkable things about you." "Just trying to make a life, Mr. President," Harlan replied. "Aren't we all?" Grant smiled. "May I meet your daughter?" Maya brought Emily out the baby, wearing a dress that combined Apache beadwork with American cotton, a gift from the combined women of both communities. Grant's expression softened as he looked at the child. My wife and I had children. Lost some, too. Each one changes you, doesn't it? Yes, Maya said, warming slightly to this man, who saw a baby first, symbol second. What do you hope for her? Julia Grant asked. That she can choose her own path, Maya answered. That she won't be trapped by what others think she should be. A hope all parents share, Julia said. May I hold her? Emily went to the president's wife, easily grabbing at her necklace with curious fingers. The image, the First Lady holding a mixed-race child at a frontier ranch, would appear in newspapers nationwide, becoming one of those moments that shifted perception simply by being seen. During the visit, Grant asked to speak with Harlan privately. They walked to the well, the president's guards staying discreetly distant. I'm going to be direct, Mr. Stone. The country's changing. The old wars are ending, but new conflicts are coming. What you've built here, it matters more than you know. We haven't built it for the country. We've built it for us. The personal is political, whether we like it or not. Grant looked out at the desert. I'm going to make this area a test case for new policies. Integration, cooperation, shared governance. Your ranch will be at the center of it. And if we refuse, then you refuse. But the attention won't go away. Better to shape it than be shaped by it. Harlan thought of Emily growing up in this spotlight. What are you asking? Be yourselves, that's all. Let people see that this works, that different peoples can build something together. And when you're gone, when someone else is president who thinks different. Grant's smile was sad. Then you'll deal with that when it comes. But you'll have legal protections, federal recognition, and most importantly, proof that it worked once. Sometimes that's enough. After the president left, life didn't return to normal. Normal had shifted, expanded. The ranch became a regular stop for dignitaries, reformers, and curious travelers. Maya started teaching classes in traditional medicine, mixing Apache and frontier knowledge. Harlan found himself mediating disputes between settlers and Apache, his word carrying weight because of what they'd survived and built. Emily grew in the middle of it all, taking her first steps between two worlds, saying her first words in both languages, learning that love came in many colors and spoke in many tongues. One evening, as Emily played with a rag doll Sarah had made, her Maya found the papers Morrison had delivered months ago, citizen papers for Emily, but also something else she hadn't noticed before. Harlan, look at this. It was a deed amendment signed by Grant himself, declaring the Stone Ranch perpetual neutral ground, protected by federal law from forced sale or seizure, able to be inherited by any descendants regardless of race or origin. He gave us forever, Maya said, wonder in her voice. He gave Emily forever, Harlan corrected, a place that will always be hers. That night they stood together watching Emily sleep, this impossible child, who'd already changed so many lives just by existing. The silver rings on their fingers caught moonlight, worn now shaped by work and weather, but unbroken. Do you regret it? Harlan asked. Everything we've given up, everything we've chosen. Maya considered, then shook her head. I regret the pain, the losses, Joseph dying even if he brought it on himself, your friends who turned away, my people who can't accept this. She touched Emily's hair, soft as silk. But regret the choices? No, never. A coyote called in the distance, and Emily stirred in her sleep, making a small sound that almost echoed the call. Maya and Harlan looked at each other, startled. Did she just? She did. They laughed quietly, careful not to wake her fully. Their daughter already speaking to the desert in its own language, already bridging worlds they could only stand beside. As autumn approached, Tom Brennan brought news from town. They're building a school, federal funded, for all children, white, Apache, Mexican, anyone. Where? Maya asked. Here, well adjacent to your property if you'll allow it. Government wants it on neutral ground. Harlan and Maya exchanged looks. More change, more intrusion, but also opportunity. Emily will need schooling, Harlan said. She'll need peers who understand her world, Maya added. They agreed and construction began. The school would open in spring when Emily would be nearly 2, not ready for formal learning, but able to grow up seeing education as something shared, not segregated. Sarah, who'd extended her stay repeatedly, finally announced she had to leave. "My bones are tired," she admitted, "and I've taught you everything you need." "Stay," Maya pleaded. "Emily needs her grandmother." "I'm not her grandmother. I'm her teacher, and that teaching is done." Sarah touched Emily's face gently. "She has everything she needs, your strength, his steadiness, and her own spirit. The rest she'll learn by living." Her departure was quiet, just her and her horse disappearing into the desert before dawn. But she left gifts, medicine bundles for protection songs written down in both Apache and English, and a promise that if truly needed, she could be found. Winter came gentle that year, unusual for the territory. Emily learned to run her sturdy legs, carrying her everywhere, her laughter filling the house. The ranch prospered, the school rose from the desert floor, and slowly, carefully, something that might have been community began to form. The test came in spring. A new group of settlers arrived, fleeing violence in Texas, suspicious of anyone non-white. They made camp near the ranch, and tensions rose immediately. "We don't want no Indian school near our children," their leader, a man named Garrett, declared at a town meeting. "The school is for all children," Maya said, standing with Emily on her hip. "Not natural mixing the races, against God's law." "Whose God?" someone asked Anna Clearwater, pregnant with her second child, brave enough to speak in the mixed gathering. "The only God," Garrett spat. "Funny," Tom Brennan said. "My God says love thy neighbor, doesn't mention checking their bloodline first." The argument escalated until Emily, who'd been quiet in Maya's arms, suddenly spoke clear as day. "Stop being mean." The room fell silent. The child who embodied everything they were arguing about had spoken, and her words carried a weight beyond her years. Garrett stared at Emily, and something in his expression shifted. That child spoke plain English. "And Apache," Maya said, "and Spanish when our neighbors visit. Children learn what they're taught." "She's..." Garrett struggled for words. "She's just a baby." "Yes," Harlan said. "A baby who'll grow up alongside your children, learning and playing and becoming whatever she chooses to be. That scares you." Garrett looked at his own son, barely older than Emily, watching everything with wide eyes. Maybe we could try it, the school, see how it goes." It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a beginning. The school opened that spring with 15 students, Apache white Mexican and Emily, youngest of all, toddling between the older children like she belonged everywhere and nowhere particular. The first teacher was a surprise, Anna Clearwater, who'd been educated at an Eastern school before returning to her people. She taught in 3 languages, making every child learn at least basic words in the others. "Understanding starts with language," she explained. "If you can speak someone's words, you can begin to know their heart." By summer, the school had 25 students. By fall, 40. Parents who'd sworn never to allow mixing found themselves watching their children play together, learn together, grow together. One evening, as Harlan and Maya watched Emily playing with both Apache and white children, making no distinction between them, Maya said quietly, "We did it." "Did what?" "Changed things, not everything, not for everyone, but here in this place things are different, because we chose to make them different. Cost us plenty. Gained us more." She leaned into him. "Look at her. She doesn't know she's impossible. To her, this is just life." Emily ran to them, arms outstretched, speaking in a mixture of languages that shouldn't exist, but did. Harlan lifted her up, spun her around, her laughter ringing across the desert. "Home," Emily declared, pointing at the house, the school, the desert, everything. "Yes," Maya agreed. "Home." As the sun set, painting the mountains purple and gold, 3 generations of coyotes called from the ridgeline, grandparents, parents, and pups all singing together. Emily tried to answer them, her small voice joining the chorus, and this time she got it almost right. "She's learning," Maya said. "We all are." They stood together as darkness gathered their small family that shouldn't exist but did on land that had become truly neutral ground, in a community still finding its way but moving forward. The ranch spread around them, the original buildings now expanded, the new school glowing with lamplight where Anna taught an evening class for adults, the garden where Apache medicine plants grew beside settler vegetables, the well that had never run dry even in the worst drought. "What do you think Emily will choose?" Maya asked. "When she's grown, whatever she wants." "That's what we fought for. All of it, the suffering, the exile, the battles. So she could choose," Harlan confirmed. "So any child born here could choose." Emily wiggled down from Harlan's arms, ran to the porch where she'd left her doll, a gift from Sarah dressed in both Apache and American clothes, impossible like its owner. "Story," she demanded, settling between them. Maya began mixing traditions as she always did. Once there was a girl who belonged to all worlds, and none who spoke with eagles and coyotes, who walked between rain and sun. "That's me," Emily interrupted. "That's you," Maya agreed. "And this is your story still being written." As Maya continued the tale, weaving their history into myth that Emily would carry forward, Harlan felt something settle in his chest. Not peace exactly, but completion. They'd built what they'd set out to build, survived what tried to destroy them, created space for something new to grow. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be those who never accepted them, laws that might change, wars that might come. But tonight, on this porch, they'd defended with blood and hope, with their daughter learning stories in languages that rarely met with the desert. Accepting them as its own, they had everything. The word they'd carved on the gate beam had deepened with weather but remained clear: home. Not just a place, but a choice renewed daily. Not just a shelter, but a statement. Not just for them, but for everyone who'd come after following the path they'd broken through impossible territory. Emily fell asleep to her mother's voice, her father's steady presence, and the coyotes singing approval in the darkness. She slept without knowledge of how impossible her existence was, how many rules had been broken for her to exist, how many people had fought and died and chosen difficult paths so she could sleep peacefully between two worlds that had learned here at least to be one. Maya finished the story, her voice soft in the darkness. And though the road was hard and the storms were fierce, love was stronger than law choice, mightier than tradition. And in the end, the desert bloomed with children who knew no boundaries except those of their own making. "Good ending," Harlan said. "It's not an ending, it's a beginning." Even better, they carried Emily inside, tucked her into the bed they'd built themselves, in the room they'd added with their own hands, in the house that had become a symbol but remained first and always their home. Outside, the desert settled into sleep, but the school lights still burned where Anna taught, where children would come tomorrow to learn that different didn't mean wrong, that mixed didn't mean weak, that bridges between worlds were worth building, especially when the crossing was hard. The coyotes called one last time, and this time Harlan tried to answer, his voice joining Maya's in the ancient conversation. They didn't get it quite right, but the coyotes answered anyway, accepting the attempt, welcoming the strangers who'd become part of the desert's own story. Through the window, stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that had watched Apache and settler, that would watch Emily grow, that would witness whatever came next in this place, where impossible things had taken root and bloomed. Home, family, future, all of it, fought for all of it, earned all of it, worth every scar and sacrifice that had brought them to this moment, this place, this life they'd chosen, against all odds and made real through sheer, stubborn love. The lamp went out, but the stars remained, And in her sleep Emily smiled, dreaming in languages that had found a way here at least to speak peace.